I stand before you today fully awake, but I dreamed the dream of Jesus, of Muhammad, of Gandhi, of Martin Luther King, and every spiritual and religious leader have come before us.
Hello and welcome to Interfaith Insights Spotlight on Faith with myself, Iain Stewart, and my very special guest today, Bill Crook. Bill is ordained in the Thich Nhat Hanh Buddhist school of Zen Buddhism tradition. He's the founder of the Interfaith environment group Earthholders and a member of Extinction Rebellion. And as we come up to World Environment Day, I think it's fantastic that we have Bill on the show. So big welcome to you, Bill. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Iain.
The first question I'd be really interested to ask is, how does a Buddhist philosophy, a Buddhist outlook help, how do Buddhist practices help people in coping during COVID-19? Obviously, you have meditation practices and things. How would you answer that? What do you think?
I think there's two parts to answering that question. I think the first one is obviously coming together as a community is helpful, without a doubt, and coming together as a spiritual community is helpful. And as you say, we can practice together, and that's exactly what's happened across the world. We've gone on to Zoom straight away. There's been ceremonies on Zoom for the sick. We've been sitting together 6 out of 7 mornings a week as a community. That's been really helpful. And for instance, one of the community, her daughter was a nurse and had COVID-19, and straight away I said, join us for the morning meditation. So that sense of being together, is really, really helpful, and practicing together. Second part I would say is looking at our emotional response to this, and fear has been one of the key words, really, key emotions. So how do we deal with fear, and how does fear arise, and shining a light on that. So I think one of the things we've been very aware of is the media and how much media we take in. And some people are watching the news all the time, and it's just more fear piling in, every day. So limiting our consumption of the media and looking at the effects that has on us was one of the things that we talk quite a lot about. And most of us decided that we would just watch the news once a day, and that was it. So what amplifies that fear, and what helps us with that fear was something that we looked a lot at, really. And it has helped, I think just those two things of practicing together and shining that light on what's going on. Of course, now as we're sort of coming out of it a little bit, the challenges is allaying that fear, because we're all really quite frightened of the infection and the effect that it's had on us. So we've now got to sort of go back to a normality and try and work on that same fear. I think those two things have worked really well. Actually, the interesting thing is we've increased our practice, we've increased our social contact through the media, and people don't want to let go of that. So we're meditating together 6 out of 7 days a week, and people say, it's great, let's just carry on.
So that's a positive that's come out of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I haven't actually ever really experienced meditation via, social media. Had that been the first time that you had been involved in that, or is it worked? And have you been surprised how well it's worked?
Well, that's curious, because I've the last 17 or 18 years, I'm founder of the Deep Listening Sangha, which is a telephone Sangha, which right. is the international telephone Sangha. So we've always kind of been online, as it were. And we've continued with that and just sort of increased that. Going on to Zoom, I think it's been interesting, because with the telephone Sangha we can't see each other, and with the Zoom we can. So in some ways it's great to see each other, in other ways it's a distraction, because so some people will turn their camera off on Zoom and things like that, so that we're not staring at each other meditating and so forth. So it's had its challenges, I think. It's had technical challenges as well.
It's just been occurring to me, just as we're speaking, and you're talking a little bit all that kind of negative news that comes in. A part of the meditation practice, correct me if I'm wrong, will be about positive thoughts, how you develop compassion, how you develop that. So it's part of the meditation at the moment about how do we not as much get rid of these negative voices, but how do we kind of put them to the back, or how do we bring the positive thoughts energy to the front? I'm interested in is during lockdown, does the meditation slightly change to reflect that?
I think at first we were wary about the depth of meditation, but Buddhists can quite often meditate on things like death, and we initially were avoiding that and keeping it lighter, because of not wanting to worsen people's fears, I suppose. But as we've gone on more, I think we've been able to go deeper. And the ceremony for the sick, for instance, was a really deep ceremony, really concentrating on sending our love and compassion to those people who are suffering. So we've been able to deepen it as the fear has got less. One of the things we do in terms of fear is to be in the present moment. A lot of our fears are what might happen.
Right.
We might get the disease, we might get ill, our parents might get it. And actually not focusing on what might be, but focusing on what is. How am I feeling now? What's my emotional state now? It's a beautiful sunny day, the birds are singing, the sky's blue. Can I not hold on to that to the present moment and not focus on the fears of what might be?
Right.
So it's a useful practice. And of course, the other thing that we do is reflect back on what has been, so could it have been better? Could we have done something differently, and so forth? And again, moving away from those constant thoughts about what if, back to the present moment helps. So, yes, it is a useful practice. I'm just thinking, I use it in the dentist chair. You sat in the dentist chair and think, oh, it's going to be terrible. No, actually, just be in the moment. How is it? It's okay. Is it hurting? No, it's not hurting. It's sort of, if you're absolutely in the moment now, there's a lot less to fear because you're dealing with what is. Wow.
That's fascinating. It strikes me as when we're emerging from lockdown, these real tools that you're giving people will help people as they emerge to be less fearful and realise that in the moment it's not as bad as what you might, don't imagine a worst case scenario.
Well, I have a true story. When I was going into the operating theatre, and I was being mindful and breathing in the present moment, and the young nurse who was going to inject me was very, very nervous and kept missing the vein.
Oh dear.
So I'm on the trolley being wheeled into the operating theatre, and I'm saying to this young lass, just breathe, just be calm. You can do this. Actually, in the end, she couldn't, and the doctor came and did the other arm, but there I was going into the operating theatre, calming down the young nurse, and just breathe,
That's
just
great.
Calm. Yeah, so it does work.
Perhaps, these, I don't know if you call it mindfulness, but some of these techniques should be taught to all NHS staff. Be quite helpful in these kind of situations. Obviously, it's quite a distressing time. You kind of touched on not wanting to get people to concentrate on the negative, but people are finding it hard at the moment because they aren't able to say goodbye to loved ones often. But does a Buddhist practice help you to kind of cope with that situation? What do you do in that situation if people come within your group?
It has been incredibly hard, and there's no substitute for being directly with your loved ones. And I think one of the hardest things about this disease is people have been dying on their own, and that's terrible, really, for both them and for their loved ones. But I think one of the practices that's helpful is to know that we're not separate, even though we have a distance between us, that we're not separate, that we are the continuation of our parents. We are our parents. There's a lot of our parents, our mothers and fathers are in us. If they're in a hospital bed, they're still there. They're still with us. They're still very much part of us. So that gives us strength and should also give them strength that we are together, regardless of the fact that we're separated by distance and separated by PPE or whatever, that divides people, keeps people apart. But I think that practice of knowing that wherever we are a part of each other, and there is that interconnection. Wow. Is is a comfort.
And are you able to conduct Buddhist funerals by, I guess, Zoom or other kind of platforms? Have you known of any that have been done that way, or
We're
or
incredibly lucky.
support?
Yeah. When I thought about that question, I realised that we haven't had a funeral within our community.
Right.
What's really interesting is I linked to communities in the US and in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And even though there was a lot of deaths both in the US and in Italy, within our community, there haven't been deaths. So there's been people who've had the virus and been seriously ill, but that we haven't had any deaths. So it's something that we haven't had to cope with.
Okay.
In terms of funerals, I've obviously seen how other communities have had to deal with this, and families watching, their loved ones on Zoom. I think it's just very difficult.
It must be. It's unimaginable, really. Correct. Well, kind of finally, as we come to reflect on World Environment Day, what would be your message for people, either coming from our folders or a Buddhist perspective, whatever way you want to put it? Do you have a message for people? Is there something that you think we should start to think about as we come to this day? Should we be mindful of how we live our lives? Are there certain changes that we should be thinking about, or would you be encouraging us to write to politicians or to ask for some changes? What could we do individually that might make a difference?
I think the first thing is, as individuals, to realise how special this planet is that we live on. People who study, the formation of planets and such like, say that the Earth could possibly be quite unique. That there are planets around other suns that are the same sort of, Goldilocks distance and so forth. But certain things happen to this planet that are very, very rare occurrences. That means that the Earth could be very, very precious within the whole of the universe. This wonderful blue planet could be very, very precious. And if you think about the amount of life that there is on this planet, it's phenomenal. We have this thin layer of life around the planet that is so diverse. So just love the planet. If you love the planet and see how wonderful it is, then how could you harm it? I think from that love of the planet comes all the other actions. We live on a beautiful, beautiful blue planet that is worth looking after and worth saving. And if we save the planet, essentially we save ourselves. So just love the planet, love ourselves, I guess, would be the simplest possible message.
Well, I think that's a very beautiful, positive message to end on. It's been wonderful to talk to you, and I hope that a lot of other people out there will be inspired to think of ways that they can love the planet. And again, thank you for joining us, Bill. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iain, and thank you for support as well of Earthholders. We've really appreciated your support too. So thank you.
Well, yeah, we'll do all we can. We're all in this together, as you say.